Welcome to episode 6 of After School with Mr. Van Huss. I'm very excited about my guest today because he's somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for quite some time. If you have been to a Tennessee Titans football game in the last decade or so, you'll know this guy as the Titans hype man. Before that, he was on CMT, and he has just released his first film as a director. It's my great pleasure to welcome Lance Smith.
Welcome to After School with Mr. Van Huss. Today I'm sitting here with Lance Smith. Lance, so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Drew. I appreciate it, man.
I know our paths have briefly crossed along the way. I think when I was with CMA, I think you were with CMT there in the early 2000s.
Yes.
And I'm most used to seeing you now when I'm at the Titans games with my family, and you're getting the crowd all hyped up.
That's it, man.
For those that may be watching that maybe aren't familiar with your work, just tell me a little bit of background. Tell me, what you've done and kind of what it is you do now.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long career. I've been in this whole thing for 25 years now, which is wild to think back on. But originally, growing up in Franklin, Tennessee, I moved a lot, but we kept settling back into Franklin. I lived in Houston County for a while as a little kid, and then Hawaii and North Carolina, but always back to Franklin. And, all my friends were after school, they were going off to Ole Miss or UT, some staying in local colleges. And I didn't make the best grades. I was a very good student in my participation in class. I have certain teachers that to this day, I still think they influenced in what I did. But I knew I wanted to get involved in film. Film was the thing that raised me because I moved so much. I spent a lot of time in the theater, a movie theater. My parents owned a store on Main Street in Franklin, and my dad would drop me off at the theater across the street, and that'd be like my babysitter. So that's what pulled me forward. And so when I graduated, I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to go to college. I'm sorry. I really need to give this a shot. And she says, you have 2 years. You have 2 years to prove that you can do something, prove that you can, you've got what it takes. And, my dad was very honest with me. He's like, I haven't seen anything out of you that shows me that like, you're going to be Tom Cruise, he was honest. Show me something. And that was their thing. And man, did I ever. I got involved in local acting classes. I got in music videos. I started hustling because that's what this business is. And I was fortunate enough to book enough jobs one after the other that my parents encouraged me then to move to Los Angeles. Jobs one after another, that's a detail we don't need, but one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a job with the Dixie Chicks. Now they're known as the Chicks, but I became their kind of a hype man between the opening act and the girls coming out each night, me and another guy. And from that, so 96 shows, 15,000 people a night with a microphone. We're upgrading people from the nosebleeds to the front row. We're hyping up the crowd. It was something the girls wanted in between the set change, the 30-minute set change. But that gave me a platform in front of a country music audience. And it gave me a great sense of control on the mic in front of a big crowd. So I first learned to be a hype man. And at the end of that tour, CMT in Nashville had just been bought by MTV, and they were looking for their next Carson Daly. And I was 22. It was green. I was young. I was too young for that level of a job. They had people flying in from all over the country auditioning, and I just kept coming back through and getting called back in and auditioning. And finally, they said, it's yours. And I learned on the job. I had no experience really. I should not have been doing it, but they trusted me, and I leaned into it, man. And I did that for a decade. All the CMA stuff that you talk about, all those experiences. I mean, the Nashville music scene in the 2000s was my universe.
And to get to be a VJ during that time, like we talked about, we're the same age. I grew up on so much MTV, and like that original group of like VJs, those people are legendary to me still.
Yeah.
And to get to do that, especially in country during that time when it was huge, like just blew up among just more than anybody can imagine.
Yeah, what people today don't realize is that the 2000s country music scene was uh, a response to the 90s country sound. The 90s country sound was it. I mean, it's what you're kind of experiencing on country radio today, I guess, but that was the 90s version of it. But in the 2000s, the visual medium, CMT, had this big boost and the visual medium was taking over. Websites were popping up and giving us these what we called verticals. We didn't have social media like we do now. So like to get onto TV then, to get famous or to do that, there were very limited avenues. And that's why you had to do the audition path and go this thing. But I always had my eye on film the whole time. And in 2010, I had to make a decision. I was unhappy in life. And I realized like I didn't get into this business because I wanted to be a personality or wanted to be an actor, wanted to do movies, and I needed to chase that down. So I jumped ship, shifted gears to save my mental health, and just kept following my dream. And I did a few more hosting things. I did 2 years on a nationally syndicated news show. That was fun because I really sort of got to be more myself. And then after that, I was really done with being a personality. I was really done being on camera because it hit me as like I tell actors this. I teach acting now, and I tell my actors it's like when you're a host, it is your name and your face that is part of the product that is synonymous with the brand. Like myself with the Titans these days, which is a whole other story. But if you're not of that brand, if it doesn't beat somewhere within your soul, within your heart, run through your blood, however you want to phrase it, you're giving a lot of yourself to it. And you have to recognize that, and you have to, square it. And I couldn't anymore. So I was done, and I got involved with filmmaking behind the scenes. I found my passion, but 9 seasons ago, Friends Behind the Scenes. And this is that whole, like, who from way back when. People that were behind the scenes in my career at CMT worked behind the scenes at the Titans, and they had this position. They were like, we need a guy. And they knew how much like I love the Titans. And so even though I was done with on camera, I really was. They were like, would you do this? And 9 seasons ago.
Well, you're great at it. I'll be honest with you. There is probably a number of things that I do the pep rallies and stuff here at Station Camp High School. I've stolen a lot from you over the years, just watching you do some of that. I guarantee there are things that you, if you saw me do a pep rally, you'd be like, I've seen that before somewhere, probably in the Titans game.
Love it. But the same thing. What do you feel? There's no difference in what you do at those pep rallies and what I do at the Titans games, because you, like myself, you are reaching out to a crowd that is also in you. You're part of that student body. I'm part of that fan base. Like I'm no different than anybody. And so I'm like screaming at myself. I used to go to Titans games when I didn't work for the Titans, and like I'm just yelling back at that kid. Well, I guess I was a kid then when they came to town, but I'm yelling back at myself in my 20s, and that's what it takes. It takes absolute like personal passion and commitment, and you devote yourself to the message, and it's then it's not a job.
No, it's definitely fun. Yeah. So before you got into your field of work, and like when you were growing up, were there any like actors that were heroes of yours that you admired?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved as a kid. E.T. was the first movie I saw in theaters. My dad took me to, and I grew up on the great Spielberg films. So it wasn't so much the actors; it was always the directors early on. But then as I got older and recognized that I thought that I wanted to be an actor. Johnny Depp was I was a huge fan of his early on. What's Eating Gilbert Grape is a favorite film of mine. And he blew me away with his sort of subtleties. And then later on, not even the actors, yes, but Good Will Hunting was the movie that came out the year I said, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. And it was because Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I admired them so much for being around our age and writing the script and making it happen. That showed so much grit. And that to me was like, oh yeah, I'm them. let's go. And so, and along the way, all the Tarantino films of the early 90s and all that stuff. But I don't know so much that it was an actor, because I respect so many of them, but it was always the movies, which now I realize, like, oh, I'm a director. That's I was admiring the directors, not the actors.
So I could relate to another thing you said. I wasn't always the best student in school. If it was something I was interested in, I was good, But if it like I was always pretty good at English and history. I could write, so I did okay there.
Yeah.
Math and science.
Oh,
it was rough. It was always a struggle. What else was high school like for you? Like, what else did you do in high school?
High school for me was funny. I was very much like, I would say like Ferris Bueller, but nowhere near as popular, meaning that like I was friends with a lot of different crowds. I didn't have one crowd, and I look back on it, and I can admit it now because I recognize it was part of what made me. And I think a lot of teenagers are this way to a degree because we're all trying to find ourselves, especially at that stage when we're still developing, frontal lobes still being put together. Trust me, guys, you'll all look back and realize this is what was happening. But I was an extreme version of that because I moved a lot, and I was always coming back in. Like I came back to Franklin High midway through sophomore year, and I was always sort of trying to climb socially. So I had this thing where I just tried too hard to fit in because I needed to. I always felt like I was missing out on that, and which developed my abilities to for acting and directing. It was all about human behavior that I was studying. So when I wasn't kind of chasing after my identity, I was really the three classes that I don't know that I would be who I am today without them were English, Miss Briggs, and I failed her class. She's the reason I was a summer graduate, didn't get my diploma until after. She failed me and I deserved it. But we had the most discussions. I didn't do the work. I didn't earn the grade, but I didn't do the work. I participated in class. And Miss Freeman, psychology. Psychology was that was a class where all that social stuff I was talking about that I was chasing just faded away, and I found something that mattered. Like you said, math, and that's when I was staring at a girl I was trying to talk to. And Miss Reynolds' speech. It was the only class I made straight A's in. So imagine that. Learning to communicate to crowds, to audiences, to tell your story publicly was really what speech was about. So those three classes saved me from just being a complete and total social clout chaser, and like that's. Those three classes saved me and put me on the right path.
Are any of those teachers still at Franklin High? Do you know?
No, I looked into it. I think Miss Freeman was for a while. But no. I saw Miss Briggs like 5 years later after I got my job on CMT. So I was like peak of my sort of fame period at that time. I ran into her at Barnes and Noble. And she was so happy for me. And it wasn't at all like I deserve to be failed. It wasn't at all like, see, I made it. She was just like, thank God you like got it together. Because she's like, I knew you had this. This was you. But yeah, it was great. But no, they're not there anymore.
That's such a great point, though, and I think that's one thing that people probably don't totally understand about teachers. I've never been happy to fail anybody. I'm here to make my students succeed, and I want them to succeed. Yeah. So the fact that you say that's awesome. And I know any teacher that watches this, it's like, thank goodness people get it.
Oh yeah, man. You know why? Because she talked to me. I had other teachers that failed me, and I had to go to summer school to make up that course. By the way, guys, do the work. The summer schools, just spend your summers playing. But I had other teachers that failed me, but did it with a kind of not a delight. I don't want to say that. They weren't the villains. I didn't show them enough respect, and I got what I deserved out of that, but it was a different kind of F, and yeah, there is a difference. She showed me so much respect, and she talked to me. She goes, I can't do it. I remember the day I came in, I was like, I got to be a summer graduate, and she talked me through it. And she's like, you're gonna be fine, but this you need. And I that was the greatest grade I ever got.
So you've got the ear here of a lot of high school students, maybe some college students. You've already told some great life lessons, but what is one life lesson that you would pass on to young people, especially somebody that might want to get into like some of the things that you have done in your career?
Yeah. So I tell a lot of my actors right off the bat, you know, when I teach acting, when I teach my courses, you know, you have a light that's guiding you. You're going towards that light because you want to hold an Academy Award. But it takes a city of people to create a film. You need to find what it is that light. Do you just want to be famous? And that's fine. That's a thing these days. If that's fine, but you got to sustain it. And that's a hustle and a job and a business all in of itself. But know that. So whatever it is that is your light that is pulling you forward, don't have blinders on. I mean, have blinders on for the things that are going to detract you from your path, but don't have blinders on for opportunity, because you might become, like, if you want to be an actor or a director, you want to do anything in this field, you might be a Foley artist, which, if you know anything about Foley work, is brilliant. It's amazing. It's an art unto itself. They're the people that make the sounds. Every sound you hear in a film wasn't happening on the set. It was happening because someone in a studio 3 months later was tapping on a desk while they walked across the floor. You know, there's a whole opportunity, a world of opportunity out there. Just be open to it, because you never know where it's going to pull you. That thing that's pulling you now is for a reason, but it might not be it. And the other thing I would say is that, you know yourself, be self-aware, know how you communicate, know what you give off, know how to read other people, listen more. I know I run my mouth a lot. I talk a lot. I teach. I'm on the mic. But when I'm engaged, when I'm doing what I do, when I'm behind the camera as a director, I'm shutting up, listening. The more you really listen to someone, the more you will get what you need with them, through them, by them. Know yourself. Be self-aware. It's one thing to have hustle and a chase, but know why you're doing what you're doing. And then finally, you're young. It will happen. It will happen. It will be there. Take your time. Enjoy what's in front of you while you've got it.
Absolutely. That's all great advice. And I hope everybody watching listens to that, because it's excellent. Didn't you just finish your first movie or something like that?
I did. And that's why I'm like so elated these days. So yeah, I didn't know I wanted to be a director. I've been teaching acting for about 7 years, 6-7 years. I did that because when I stopped hosting and when I was off camera, I still had this passion in me. I still had this thing. I was like, I love acting. I love working with actors. And over some time, friends of mine got me to direct a commercial pilot or a comedy pilot, which I did. We had a blast. It opened my eyes to directing. Then I started directing commercials and little things here and there. And a friend who he's the executive producer of this film had a script, got an angel investor. That's when you find one lucky rich person that's willing to hand over $250,000 to trust these unknown filmmakers. But I got a script and I poured my heart and soul into it, as did a lot of other people, 50 other people. And we just finally got distribution, and we just released October 17th, A Time for Every Purpose, as my directorial debut. And I'm over the moon, man. It's like, you know, I found my purpose through my family, through my wife and children. But this, I found my, like, you know, my career purpose, and this just feels right. And I'm so proud of it.
Well, that's excellent. I haven't seen the film yet, but I want to check it out the first chance I get, because I'd really like to see your work on that side of the camera.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It means a lot. I will say, we were a low budget, faith-based independent film. We did not get rated by the MPAA. That's a side thing companies do. We didn't have any money. There's some language in the film, just word of warning for those watching. It's a little language. It's just make it gritty and authentic, but it's a powerful film. So I hope you watch it.
Excellent. Lance, I can't thank you enough for sitting down and talking to me today. And I appreciate this so much. I appreciate your time. And whether it's watching your movies or whether it's hanging out at the Titans games, I'm going to be right there cheering for you the whole time, man. And I wish you the best.
This means a lot to me, Drew. I really appreciate it. I wish you the best. I want to see some pep rally footage, though. I want to see some more of that. I have actually seen you on Twitter or X, or whatever we're calling it these days. I have seen some
you
footage
on that a few times because I want so badly for you to come up and run a pep rally with me sometimes because I want to team up.
That would be great.
We got to make it happen.
That would be full circle for my entire career, because that is one thing I did at Franklin High, was part of the pep team, you know, doing characters and stuff. Man, that would be incredible. So let's make that happen.
I will let you know. We'll have coming home in basketball season, probably January or February. So I'll keep you informed and see if we can work something out somewhere along the way. That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Oh, I love it. Well, this is great, man. I appreciate it. And to everybody watching, yeah, stay with it. Life has got a lot of twists and turns, but stay the course and be open.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lance Smith. Thanks for staying after school with Mr. Van Huss. I'll see you soon, my friend.
Right on.